Brilliant. Okay, so we're live here at the Charlie Tango studio at Techfestival in Copenhagen, and with me is George Roeder, and George is the Director of Open Innovation at Mozilla. And George, you just did a talk on democratizing speech technology. Why do you think that's important right now?
Yeah, well, I think that one of the things that we're seeing now is that because technology has advanced so well around machine learning and voice assistants that are built off of that, we're seeing a huge proliferation in the availability of these technologies.
Yeah.
And people are just using them, right? They have voice assistants in their home, they pull out their phones and they use these speech assistants on their phones. And whether it's Google or Amazon or Apple, Siri, whatever it is, these are things that are in people's lives right now. And so one of the things that we're really asking ourselves a lot is, with this becoming such a central user interface, the way that people connect with technology and computers and things that are connected to the internet, are we happy with the health of how that technology is actually being developed and put out there into the world? And one of the big kind of questions that we're asking is, what are the implications of something that it may be the most popular user interface of the future 5-10 years from now? Right. What are the implications if that is controlled by large companies rather than something that is more open and standards-based and where anybody can engage?
Right, so large companies, mainly for us in Denmark, placed in the U.S.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. And why should we be worried about that?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of reasons. One is, first it's engaging with those companies. You're engaging with their ecosystem and their commercial interests. Right. And if they are in between you and the information you want to access, the brands you want to access, the various different parts of the internet you might be interested in, then you're going to get their version of that information or those shopping sites or whatever it is. And so it's really a matter on that dimension of control, right? And do we want people controlling their own internet experience, or do we want it defined by larger companies? I think the second side is really a question of privacy, and we're seeing some of this come up right now, where the promise always was, oh, don't worry about this device in your house. I know it has an array of 27 speakers on it, right, but it's going to be fine. Or
we're not listening in.
Yeah, we're not listening in. And then, of course, what we've discovered is people are listening.
Yeah.
And they're doing so for good reasons, to improve the technology, but that also has its implications. And so the question becomes, should we have alternate versions of these that are more private, more secure? Maybe they're on your device. Maybe that's not great for some of these large tech companies and their revenue streams, but maybe it's better for the types of technology and types of use cases that we probably see evolving. And then the last issue, really, after kind of control and privacy, the third is inclusion.
Yeah.
Right? And so, this is particularly relevant, I think, in a place like Denmark, where it's a relatively small country.
It's 5 to 6 million people, right? Yeah.
Exactly, right? And so the question becomes, I understand now that Amazon, arrived recently with their voice assistant here, but it took some time.
Yeah, and they're still not, operating at the same level as the US and English voices, so it's definitely behind.
Right, and so there's language, there's maybe accents, there's questions around speech styles, there's parts of the world, and so really we think that it should be communities and local startups or academic institutions or governments being able to describe and define what's available, or at least have access to that. So we really, for those of control and privacy and inclusion, we really see a opportunity to kind of say, how can we make these technologies more available,
Right.
and more available to more people to kind of control and build in the way that they want.
Right, and one way that you're doing that is through the Common Voice initiative that you talked about. Could you tell just a bit about what that is and then how it works?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that is true of all of these technologies is that they require data to train them.
Right.
So, a computer can't on its own figure out how to understand a voice. It needs data that you feed it, and then it's able to learn about how to understand voices. And so one of the big challenges right now is that in the open and public sphere, there aren't a lot of big data sets. They're very much kind of kept, and they're almost like data is gold, and we're going to keep our gold.
Exactly.
And so we launched Common Voice to really allow this platform for everybody to kind of stand up their own community, language community, to go out there and actually collect data from people who are willing to donate their voice to this publicly available data set that is out there. And so what it is, you go to voice.mozilla.org, and you can see a way to contribute your voice. So you basically get a sentence that pops up, and you read it out in whatever language, whether it's Danish accented English or Danish, or any other of, right now I think we have pretty much 30 languages on the site and another 70 in development. And then you also have the option to kind of listen to what other people have said and say, hey, thumbs up, thumbs down.
So
did they say what?
So you can validate whether it's
exactly. Exactly. And so this is a great way where we have now collected over 3,000 hours of data, and from almost 200,000 people.
So how much do you need? I mean, what's the critical mass for a small language like Danish?
Yeah.
When do we have enough data to do acceptable?
Yeah, it's a great question, and the machine learning engineers will hate what I'm about to say next, but machine learning is a little bit of magic,
right.
And a lot of science and a little bit of magic. And so when you kind of ask an engineer who's working in this, how many hours do you need? The answer varies. There's sort of like the finger in the wind standard. It's like 10,000 hours for a general purpose speech recognition engine.
Okay.
What we've also discovered is you can train something that's reasonably good with like 2,000 hours.
Right.
In addition to that, if you really know what the application is supposed to do, so for example, let's say I'm the Danish government and I want people to actually be able to navigate a limited set of choices around filing my taxes using their voice.
Yeah.
You could actually have a much smaller number of hours, maybe 200 or 300 hours, that would be specific to that purpose.
So specific terminology and
exactly. And so sort of it depends on what you're trying to do and the quality level you're trying to hit.
So it would be like a purpose-built voice bot that could then serve that goal.
Exactly. Yeah.
So as we just talked about before this, there's this aura of dystopia or concern about many of these talks out here. Do you think we need to be concerned about this technology?
I think we need to be asking hard questions of this technology, right? I'm an engineer, and might call myself a technologist too, but I'm one who has also sort of studied enough of the history of technology to realize that technology is opinionated, right? It actually, there's no such thing as it's objective, and you put it out there and it's just, people will use it however they will. Technology has opinions built in.
Right.
And I think as technologists and engineers, we need to be partnering with social scientists and anthropologists and policymakers to really understand what is the direction we would like to steer this. And what are the tough questions we need to ask to allow us to steer it in that direction. And these are really tricky ethical questions. So an example with Common Voice is one person came up to me after the talk and gave me this example, which we've thought about, is what if we have this data set out there that's in English and has some accents identified, and people use it to train systems that will be biased against people with that kind of accent. That might be biased, let's say in in the States or in Denmark, or somebody with a more inner city accent, or somebody who may have,
rural accent.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? Like, what does that actually look like?
Yeah.
And how can we anticipate some of those things and really try to understand, okay, what is the mixture of technology design and policy and the way these projects are advancing that allow us to head those off?
Brilliant. All right. Thank you so much, George. Thank you
thanks
for
a
being
lot,
here.
Rasmus.
And I think we're off.
Great.
And I press that one. Slide to stop. Perfect. Thanks, man.
Cool.
Good
Thanks
stuff.
a lot.